Hello, in this video, we're going to show you how to assemble this bookcase. This bookcase features Walker Edison's easy assembly drawer technology, which means the drawers go together tool-free and with less frustration. Before we get started, here's a few things to keep in mind. Make sure you have a Phillips head screwdriver, make sure to set aside enough time for assembly, and just make sure all the pieces are facing the right way and you'll do great. In this video, we're going to focus on the trickier parts and go quickly through the easier steps. So just make sure you pause the video and complete all the steps as we go. So let's get into it. In step 1, we're going to put cam bolts and dowels into pieces 10 and 9. So we're going to put 8 cam bolts into piece 10 and 4 into piece 9. And then for the dowels, we're going to take our little tube of glue and put a drop of glue into each hole before we put the dowels in. Next, we'll attach these two pieces together. So we'll take piece 9, and these 2 cam bolts here along this edge are going to go into these holes here. So it'll go into this piece like this. And just make sure all of the cam bolts are facing upwards and inwards. And then we'll put 2 cam locks into these 2 holes. Okay, once those are in, we're good to move on. In step 2, we're going to put dowels into pieces 12 and 14. And we'll do the same thing with the glue as before. And then we can set piece 14 aside for later. Then we'll attach piece 12 to this part that we put together in step 1. So we're going to attach piece 12 to this part here. And then just make sure that these cam lock holes are facing inwards this way. And then we'll line that up and put in the cam locks. Okay, we're good to move on. In step 3, we're going to put cam bolts and dowels into pieces 2 and 3. So we'll be putting 6 dowels into each piece and then 8 cam bolts into each piece. Okay, once all of those cam bolts and dowels are in, we're going to attach some pieces to piece 2. So I'm going to flip this around like this. And then we're going to attach this piece from before. And that's going to face like this with this shorter overhang on this side, on the side that's opposite this groove here. And it'll go down here at this end. So we'll line up all of those cam bolts, and the dowels will line up too. And then once that's in place, we can lock that with all of the cam locks. And make sure you get all of the holes. In this part, there should be 5 cam locks to put in. And then next we'll attach pieces 13 and 14 as well. So we'll take piece 13 and put these cam lock holes facing inwards like this, and it'll line up with these 2 cam bolts here. And then we'll lock that one in place with cam locks. And then we'll take piece 14, and this overhang is going to be facing this way towards this edge here. And then we'll put in 1 cam lock. Okay, once those are all in, we can move on to step 4, and we're just going to attach this piece to this other side. So we'll take this piece and line up all of the cam bolts and dowels. And then we'll lock it in place with cam locks. Okay, once all of those cam locks are locked, we're going to take pieces 11, which are these drawer slider rails. And these are going to attach to these bolts here on the inside. And then with pieces 11, these rails have like a rubber stopper on the one end. And that's the end that's going to attach to the cam bolts here. And also just make sure that the rails are facing inwards on the piece. So if they're in properly, the rails should extend this way. Okay, then we're good to move on. In step 5, we're going to attach cam bolts to these 2 pieces here, and then we'll attach them to the main piece here. So we'll be putting 9 cam bolts into each of these. Okay, once all of the cam bolts are in, these pieces will flip over and line up with all of the holes on these pieces. So as a point of reference, these 2 pairs of 2 cam bolts will line up with the 2 drawer pieces here. And then also these angled parts will be facing this way on those pieces. And then we'll lock both of these in place with all of the cam locks. And also there are going to be 9 cam locks into each side. There's one that's kind of deep inside on this part. Okay, once all of those cam locks are in, we can move on to step 6, and we'll be attaching these small brackets to the underside of these parts here. And we'll be using screws V to do that. Okay, we're good to move on. In step 7, we're going to insert the back panel into these grooves along here. And when we do that, we'll just want to make sure that the tape side is facing towards the back of the piece. And then just make sure it's fully seated into this piece here. Okay, once that panel's in, then we'll take pieces 1 and piece 6. And with piece 6, we'll attach the magnetic door latch to this block here on this side. And then with this, just make sure that the metal part of the latches are facing towards this curved part. So it's facing out like this. And then we'll attach that with 2 screws. And then we'll also put 3 cam bolts into this piece as well. And then we'll also put cam bolts into piece 1. And then we'll put 2 dowels into this edge of piece 1. And then next in step 8, we'll attach these 2 pieces together. So we'll stand up piece 6 and insert these cam bolts into the holes on the edge of piece 1. And then we'll put in 3 cam locks. Okay, and then also in this step, we can attach the wall brackets to the top of this piece here. But we're gonna skip that part and move on and attach this piece to the top of the main shelf. So just make sure that this curved piece lines up with the curved pieces on the shelf, and then we'll lock it in place with cam locks on these parts. And then next we'll take this rubber door stopper and we'll screw it into these 2 holes here on the inside of the shelf. Okay, next in step 9, we'll take these metal plates and we'll attach them to the inside of these 2 corners up here. Okay, we're good to move on. In step 10, we're going to attach the hinges to the doors and then the doors to the main piece. So with the hinges, we'll take this little cup part that kind of sticks out and that'll go into the doors, and then we'll put in 2 screws. And then we'll do the same thing with the other 5 hinges. Okay, once all of the hinges are on, we'll also attach these metal plates to the tops of the doors. That'll work with the magnet on here. And with these, we just want them to be turned so that they're flush on both edges, so that it's closest to the top of the door. Then we'll screw those in. Okay, next we'll attach the doors, and door 15 will go on this side of the cabinet, and door 16 will go on this side. And with these, we're going to be screwing the hinges into these little blocks on the inside, and they're going to be going in through the bottom. So when you're attaching the doors, it can be helpful to tip the cabinet up onto its side so you can reach the screws a little bit easier, or just have a second person come and help you. In step 11, we're going to insert the shelves, and for that we're going to start by putting in the shelf pegs. So we'll put 4 pegs in for each shelf, and then just make sure they're all on the same level. So I'll just put them in the middle holes on each set of holes, So we'll take the shelves and tip them at an angle, and then we can lower them onto the pegs. Just like that, and then we're good to move on. In steps 12 and 13, we'll show you how to assemble the drawers. These drawers feature Walker Edison's easy assembly drawer technology, which means they go together tool-free and with less stress and frustration. So we'll start by taking the drawer front, which is this piece here, piece 17, and we'll take one of each piece 18 and 19, and those will go on the sides here. So with the side piece here, we just want to make sure that this groove lines up with the groove on the drawer front. And these little metal pegs on here will go into the two holes on this piece here. So we'll just flip these latches so that those line up. And we'll also take a dowel and put it into the end here. And then we'll line those up. And then once they're in, we'll flip the latches. And that locks it into place. Then we'll do the same thing on this other side with piece 19. Again, just make sure that this groove is lining up with this groove. And then we'll flip the latches so that they line up. Put in our dowel. And then we'll flip the latches. Then we'll also take one of piece 22 and put it into this hole here in the middle. This one does not have a dowel. Just make sure that these latches are facing outwards though, so that we can flip them after the bottom panel is in, which is what we'll do next. So we'll slide the panel into the grooves and make sure that's fully seated into that. And then we'll take one of these back pieces and we'll line up the holes like we did before. And we'll also put two dowels into the ends, one on each end. And also make sure that this middle latch also lines up. And then we'll lock those all in place. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing with the other drawer. Okay, once both drawers are done, then we can insert them into the cabinet. So the drawers are both the same, so it doesn't matter which one goes in which. So we'll just line up the rails on both sides, and then just push them in. They'll latch into place. And same thing with the other one. Okay, then we're good to move on. In step 15, we're going to insert these plastic wedges along the back of the back panel. And for this, we'll just insert the flat part into the groove between the panel and the piece. And then we'll put a screw in through the hole on this. Okay, and then we'll space out the rest of the wedges around the back panel, and then we're done. We hope this video was helpful for you in assembling your new bookcase. For more guides, tips, and tricks, go to walkeredison.com.